Welcome to this deep dive. We're here to sift through the details and bring you the crucial insights.
That's right.
Today, our focus is on Doximity. They're a pretty significant player in the healthcare technology space.
Definitely.
We've got their spring 2025 investor presentation and also their latest Q4 and fiscal year 2025 financial results press release.
So our goal today is to really get under the hood of Doximity, understand their business model, look at the key metrics, the numbers that drive them, and, figure out their place in this whole healthcare tech landscape.
Yeah, and we've got a good mix of sources. The investor deck gives us that high-level strategic view,
hmm
and the financial results give us the hard numbers on recent performance. Should give us a pretty well-rounded picture.
Exactly. A strategic overview and a detailed snapshot.
Okay, so let's start unpacking what makes Doximity, what makes them tick. Their core value proposition, they call themselves the digital platform for doctors. That's quite a statement.
It is bold, but the scale they're operating at kind of backs it up. I mean, they talk about a network that reaches over 80% of all U.S. physicians. That was as of March 31st, 2025.
80%. Wow.
Yeah, just think about that. This incredible penetration into the physician community. And then you look at their workflow, unique active providers, that's the doctors actually using their tools,
Right.
over 620,000 of them in just the last quarter ending March 31st. So it's not just a big list. People are actively engaged. It suggests they really are becoming this central digital spot for doctors.
And it's not just the individual doctors either, is it? They make a point of saying they serve major healthcare organizations.
That's right. Top hospitals, health systems, and also the top pharmaceutical manufacturers. So they're plugged in on both sides, the providers and the industry.
Which puts them in an interesting spot to tackle some of the real headaches in healthcare, right? They mention these glaring day-to-day inefficiencies.
Exactly. And they give some stark examples like 75% of physicians linking burnout,
Mm-hmm.
at least partly, to problems with electronic health records, EHRs.
Yeah, EHR inefficiency. I think anyone who's dealt with the healthcare system feels that one.
hmm And then there's the fax machine statistic. 70% of U.S. healthcare communications still relies on fax. It sounds almost unbelievable today.
It really does, like something out of the 90s.
It just highlights this huge opportunity for, well, modernization.
Mm-hmm.
And Doximity explicitly says they're drawing inspiration from the kind of enterprise tech we use daily.
Okay. They mention examples.
Yeah, things like Zoom for video calls, Slack for messaging, DocuSign for signatures, Google for search, LinkedIn for networking. They want to bring that level of, purpose-built technology specifically to medicine.
Okay, so how are they actually doing that? What are the core areas they're building solutions for?
They group it into three main areas: productivity, newsfeed, and professional network. So on the productivity side, it's about tools to make a doctor's day run smoother. Telehealth is big, their dialer for voice and video calls, digital fax and e-signature to get away from paper, secure messaging, which is crucial for IPAMA compliance,
Mm-hmm.
tools for managing those complex on-call schedules, and even AI-driven workflow tools. They're probably using AI for things like summarizing patient charts or maybe offering clinical decision support.
That sounds like a pretty comprehensive set of tools just for workflow. What about the news feed? Is that like a social feed for doctors?
That's a pretty good way to think about it, yeah.
Oh,
It's a curated stream of info relevant to them. You get medical articles, news, updates from colleagues, discussions on clinical cases,
okay.
and crucially for their business model, sponsored content from their pharma and health system partners.
Okay. So that's where the marketing solutions start to come in clearly. And the third piece, the professional network. That sounds like they're LinkedIn for doctors.
Exactly. Allows physicians to build detailed profiles, search for specialists, connect for consults or referrals, even manage their careers, look for jobs. It's about creating that online professional ecosystem.
Right.
And that feeds into the network effect.
Mhm.
The more docs who join, the more valuable it becomes for everybody else on the platform.
Ah.
It's a classic tech play.
Makes total sense. Okay, let's switch gears to how they actually generate revenue. You mentioned marketing solutions is the biggest piece. Who's the target audience for those?
Primarily two groups. Health systems, maybe trying to reach referring physicians or just build their brand in pharmaceutical companies. Pharma wants to educate doctors about new drugs, treatments, guidelines, that sort of thing.
And Doximity offers them a way to reach very specific groups of physicians on the platform.
Highly targeted, yes. And they push the ROI pretty hard. They cite figures like over 11-to-1 return based on IQVIA data, and even 17-to-1 using LexisNexis data. Those are pretty compelling numbers if you're an advertiser.
Definitely. So how does the pricing work? Is it like pay-per-click or?
No, it's a subscription model. Pricing depends on a few things. The specific audience you want to reach, like by specialty, the size of that audience, and then which specific Doximity modules or features you're using.
Got it. And they seem to use a land and expand sales approach. What does that mean practically?
Yeah, it's very common in SaaS, software as a service.
Mm.
The idea is to get in the door with a client first, maybe sell them on using Doximity for one specific drug brand or one service line at a hospital.
Okay.
Once they're in and showing value, the goal is to expand that relationship, get more brands on board, more departments using it, and encourage them to add more Doximity modules or features over time. Start small, prove value, then grow the account.
Right. Build it up incrementally. So beyond the core newsfeed advertising, what other kinds of modules can they expand into?
Well, within the newsfeed itself, they offer different ad formats like long-form video, short-form video, and they can build custom packages. But then they have separate workflow modules too. A key one they highlight is the point-of-care formulary tool.
Ah, what does that do?
It gives doctors quick access to information about which drugs are covered by a patient's insurance, right when they're about to prescribe. That can save a lot of hassle later.
Yeah, I can see how that would be useful. Okay, let's look at their growth. They mention attractive revenue growth, specifically a 32% compound annual growth rate, CAGR. That sounds pretty strong.
It's very strong. And the actual dollar figures really show. They went from, what, $27 million in fiscal 2020?
Right.
All the way up to forecasting $339 million for fiscal 2026. That's quite a climb in just 6 years.
And the subscription part of that revenue seems solid too, 21% growth in the last year. That recurring revenue is always a good sign.
Absolutely. And what really highlights the stickiness of the platform and customer satisfaction is their net revenue retention rate. It was 119% for the 12 months ending March 31st, 2025.
So existing customers are spending 19% more on average year over year.
Exactly. That shows that land and expand strategy is working. They're successfully upselling existing clients. And for their top 20 biggest customers, that rate is even higher, 123%.
Wow, okay. And they're also growing the number of bigger clients, right? The ones spending over $500,000 a year.
Yep, 116 customers spending over $500 K annually now, which is up 17% from the year before. So they're landing bigger deals and expanding the ones they have. It all points towards a pretty healthy growth engine.
Okay, so the business seems strong. What about the overall market they're playing in? They talk about a big total addressable market, the TAM. How do they break that down?
They see it in three main chunks. First, pharmaceutical marketing, which they peg at about $7.3 billion.
Okay.
Second, health system marketing and staffing. That's around $6.9 billion. And third, telehealth at $4.3 billion.
Yeah.
Add it all up, and they estimate their total market opportunity at $18.5 billion.
There's plenty of room to grow in their view.
Definitely. And a really key point they make is that physicians influence something like 73% of all healthcare spending.
Over 73%.
Yeah. So if you can effectively reach and engage those doctors, you're influencing a massive amount of spending. That's the strategic value proposition to their clients.
Makes sense. They also gave some specifics on their penetration within pharma marketing budgets for different drug brands. What did that show?
It was interesting. For the big blockbuster drugs, over $100 million in U.S. sales, they've already signed up 89% of those brands as clients.
Pretty high penetration there.
It is. But for the smaller brands under $100 million in sales, their penetration is lower, around 52%. So still a lot of potential to sign up more of those smaller brands.
Okay.
But maybe even more telling, they estimate that for most brands, they do work with about 69% of them. Doximity currently gets less than 5% of that brand's total budget for marketing to healthcare professionals, HCPs.
Ah, so even with the clients they have, there's potentially a lot more budget they could capture from each one. Expand the share of wallet, basically.
Exactly. Huge potential to deepen those existing relationships and increase the spend per client.
All right, let's pivot to the latest financials then. The Q4 and fiscal year 2025 results. The top line growth looked good.
Yeah, really solid. For the full fiscal year 2025, revenue hit $314 million. For Q4, it was $115.3 million. Both of those were up 20% compared to the previous year. Consistent growth.
And profitability, always key.
Very strong there, too. GAAP net income was $223.2 million for the year, $55.2 million for Q4. But their adjusted EBITDA, which is a common metric folks look at.
Okay, excludes some non-cash stuff.
Exactly. That was even higher, $313.8 million for the full year, $98.2 million just in Q4.
Yeah.
That works out to really impressive. Adjusted EBITDA margins, 55% for the year, 54% for the quarter.
Wow, 55% margin for the year. That's quite high. Suggests a very efficient business.
It really does. Highly scalable. And their balance sheet looks healthy, too.
Yeah. What's their cash position like?
As of the end of March 2025, they had about $209.6 million in cash and equivalents, plus another $706.1 million in marketable securities. So a very strong cash position, giving them lots of flexibility.
Okay. And we see those strong net revenue retention numbers again in the results, confirming that stickiness.
Yep, 119% overall, 123% for the top 20.
And the growth in those larger $500K plus customers continues. Plus, their non-GAAP earnings per share also showed good growth. It paints a picture of a financially sound and growing company.
Definitely. Now, the presentation also touched on leadership. They really emphasize being founder-led and mission-driven.
Right. The original founders are still involved, and they highlighted their investment in R&D.
Yeah, over a third of their, 830 employees are in R&D. That signals a strong focus on continuing to innovate and build out the platform.
It's just they're not just sitting still.
Doesn't seem like it. They list out their key executives, too. CEO, Chief Strategy Officer, both co-founders, CTO, Head of Product, Legal, CFO, even a Chief Physician Experience Officer. Looks like a pretty seasoned team covering the key bases.
So if we were to boil down Doximity's own summary of their strengths, what are the key takeaways they want investors and us to have?
Well, first, they see themselves as the leading digital platform for doctors. Second, they emphasize the power of those network effects. More users make it better for everyone. Third, sustainable growth, coupled with that strong profitability we just talked about.
Okay.
Fourth, they point to having a veteran team that really understands this specific vertical healthcare. And finally, this massive near-term market opportunity, especially as healthcare keeps shifting more and more towards digital.
Right. Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive on Doximity, it seems pretty clear they've carved out a really strong niche, maybe even a dominant position in the U.S. physician digital space.
I'd agree. That huge user base, the diverse ways they make money, and their focus on solving real problems, those healthcare inefficiencies we talk about, it all seems to be working.
Yeah, the consistent growth, those impressive profit margins, it certainly makes a strong case for their position in the market right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They've managed to capture a really critical audience, the doctors, and build tools that seem valuable both for the doctors themselves and for the wider industry trying to reach them.
Yeah.
The financials really back up the story.
So here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to chew on. We see digital tools becoming more ingrained in everything we do, right? So how will platforms like Doximity continue to change the game for doctors? How will they shape physician workflows, the way colleagues collaborate, how they get information in the future?
Yeah, and what's the next big thing? What's the next frontier for digital innovation when it comes to healthcare communication or maybe professional networking for doctors? It's definitely a space to keep an eye on.
It really is. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.